You look pretty good for just being on national TV and in front of Congress.
You're on national TV every night. You look good. I don't know. What do you want me to do?
How you feeling? How was it?
It was. I'm glad that I did it, and I'm glad that it is over. Both things are true, and I'm glad that I was able to get through it without falling down or saying something I regret, and it was good.
Was there things you were prepared for that they didn't ask?
You know, the way that it worked with Bill Stepien, congratulations, Bill Stepien, and your family for your first child, because he was not there in person. They had to use a bunch of cut-up tape that they had for him from his prior interviews. So that made the flow a little different than I expected. But, I mean, look, here's the thing. It's a story I've told before. It's a story that I told on election night while it was happening. In 2020. And I was very pleased and very proud of what Fox News did in the 2020 election in terms of calling the race, being the best. That's what they had us for. And so I was always pleased to tell that story.
How'd this come about? Twitter, Instagram, email?
Never tweet.
No?
Never tweet.
Text messages?
No. Well, here's the thing. I got a letter from the chairman, Bernie Thompson, asking me to participate. Now, I could have tried to resist or something and make them send a subpoena or something. But this was a duly constituted committee of the United States Congress. I have spent a lot of time in my career talking about the importance of institutions, particularly Congress. So I don't think it would have been suitable for me to try to fight a duly issued request from a duly constituted committee of the United States Congress. Plus, this is a hugely important issue. Our understanding of January 6th, you and I have talked about it before, but so much focus goes on, well, how will this affect midterms? Well, how will this affect this? Will this win the day? Will this lose the day? It's really important. We got here imperfectly, but it's really important to make a record for all time of what happened, right? It's not sexy. It doesn't make you win elections. And I watched as Republicans and Democrats traded back and forth, not living up to the levels of statesmanship that they should have exhibited in the wake of first of all, Trump's effort to steal the election, and then the January 6th attack, which was a consequence of his efforts. And I watched both parties fail us, and both parties refused to do the necessary thing, because the necessary thing in times like this is to say, I don't care whether it hurts me or helps me. I don't care whether this is good for me, good for the other side. This is the right thing to do right now, and the stakes are too high to do it. So we got here imperfectly. We got to the January 6th committee imperfectly, but the work had to be done at some point, and this is how it's getting done.
We obviously see what we see on television. You've had a really unique insight into the committee and its work. Have you found them to be doing the work diligently and honorably as a fact-finding mission, or is there a inherently partisan nature to what they're doing?
Look, it's like you asked the blindfolded men to describe the elephant to you. One guy says it's a tree because he's touching the leg. The other guy says it's a snake. He's touching the nose. The other guy says it's a rope. He's got the tail. I had a very small part of the elephant in my grasp. I have no idea what the rest of the committee is doing or how they are, but I can tell you the people I worked with who I talked to and who did the pre-interview with me were courteous, professional, patriotic seeming, good to work with. I did not have any problem with them, nor did I feel like they wanted me to change what I had to say or that the truth would somehow be unsuitable.
There's a lot of election experts, and you know I have an enormous amount of respect for you. We worked together for almost a decade. But there's a lot of election experts. How much of this, of them wanting you to be involved, was because of your election expertise, and how much of it was because they could say, former Fox News politics editor?
I like to forecast elections, but I do not like to forecast other people's feelings and opinions. I do not know why they wanted me, other than the fact that that Arizona call did cause quite, as we saw in the hearing, the Arizona call that we made, and with which we beat the competition, was consequential inside the White House. And I will say it was interesting to hear in the testimony the way that Arizona call was received by the president and other people, and to hear how it was. Because what's funny, after we made the call, we moved on. We were talking about, can we call Georgia? What's going on in North Carolina? How are we going to do the next thing? And while we were doing our jobs, the people in the White House and the campaign, one of the deep misunderstandings that my experience in 2020 revealed to me is that somehow we make these things happen. We're just telling people what happened. As I like to say, I am the weatherman. I'm rooting for the hurricane, or I'm rooting for the trailer park and not the hurricane. But I can't tell you. I can only tell you where the storm's going, not what it's going to hit. And that's it. That's all I do. I had a U.S. senator the week of the election say that I was engaged in a cover-up and that I should be fired. And I thought, what am I covering up? What is it that you think that I could I don't have any ballots here. We're just some nerds in a room with cool computers and a lot of great survey data and a lot of experience around elections. That's it. But you can see that even in the White House, how misshapen the understanding even of the president was about the role that networks play in this. We're just telling you what happened. We're not making it happen. We're just telling you what already happened.
There's few people in the business who are as good as you. There's nobody better. You've been at this for multiple decades. What was it like back then to have the president of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, call you and your team a liar and a hack?
Well, he had been insulting me for quite a while. So I was well accustomed to Donald Trump saying that. I think the first thing he called me was a dumb puppet in 2016. And I thought, like, Kermit, like, he's cool. But no, you don't worry about don't listen to partisans, right? Because they're going to tell you, Donald Trump is like an extreme version of all of this. He is the pro wrestling version of the same game that partisans play all the time, which is they're not going to tell you what's bad for their side. They're only going to tell you what's bad for the other side. Anytime that you tell them that they're losing, what are they going to say? Well, you can't trust these polls. Like Donald Trump. Don't believe the polls unless I'm winning in the polls. Right. If I'm winning in the polls, then you should totally pay attention to the polls. So what you have to do, and it's not just with Donald Trump, it's with all the politicians, tune it out. Huh? Because what else are they going to say? What do you expect them to say?
One of the issues perhaps with having such a scripted hearing is it did not leave a lot of room for follow-ups. We saw the person who was talking to you, the member, just reading every question right off the teleprompter. I want to go back to your answer about Arizona call. You said that the craziness that ensued. Tell me about the craziness. Well,
I mean, like I said, you have got a U.S. senator who says I should be fired and I'm part of a cover-up. You have there was sort of this splenetic rage that was pouring out because I think Fox News, once upon a time, was understood to have a news division and an opinion division. And the news division played it straight. We worked in the news division, supposed to play it straight, fair and balanced. That's the idea, so that the opinionators can go run around and say whatever it is that they're going to say. And you don't put chocolate in the peanut butter, and that's the way to do it. The same way a newspaper would, right? You have the opinion page and you have the news section, and never the twain should meet. I think that the line got blurry for some in the network, but I think the perceptions in the audience got very blurry. So if you hear night after night in the primetime shows, oh, look at Trump again. Trump is going to do it again. Don't believe these pollsters. Don't believe our own people. And then on election night, I come out and say, well, the thing I said was going to happen. The thing I said was very likely to happen is certainly happening. One of the other things I think Republicans did not understand in 2020. So Donald Trump's victory over Hillary Clinton was stunning. He threaded the needle in these three upper Midwest, northern tier states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, broke through the blue wall, did it narrowly. Wow, oh, wow, oh, wowie. We were thrilled to make the crucial call in that race. We were thrilled to win. That was what the Decision Desk team likes to do.
It's like Al Michaels, rooting for drama.
Well, I mean, we weren't rooting for drama. We're just always rooting to beat the other guys. We just want to be first. And that's how we looked at it. We never had to take a call back in the decade that I was there. But we had this great record, and that's what we want to do is win. And that's what we thought the company wanted us to do, too. We may have been a little misinformed on that. But
tell me about that.
Well, no, I just think the viewers if you get lied to enough for long enough about what the shape of the race is, when you get to the end, of course you're going to be mad. You know, the sad part about January 6th is for those people who did those monstrous things that day, if you believed what they were doing was correct. That's the problem. The problem is they thought they were acting in a patriotic, appropriate fashion. If you really believe that the Chinese have hacked our election and have stolen the president and all of that stuff, well, yeah, I mean, put on your Viking horns, like go do it. And because not enough people on the right side, this is a consequence, yet another consequence of a partisan siloed media. If you're here in the echo chamber, you're not going to be ready for real life because you're only going to be flattered and cosseted and kissed up to by the people who are spoon feeding you this information. If you want to be a good citizen, you're going to have to hear some things that make you unhappy from time to time.
Speaking of hearing things that are unhappy, you've obviously watched the hearings as you did a couple of nights ago last Thursday. You testified now, saw what happened later in the day. Have we learned anything new out of these hearings, or have we merely been provided evidence of things that most reasonable people and informed people should have expected?
Well, I think Bill Barr has been very revealing. I think the comments that Bill Barr has made have been quite revealing.
Are they that different than what he said in his book?
I'm sure it's a great book. I have not read the whole book. I don't know what all is in there. I thought Bill Barr's comments were revealing. I thought what we heard from Bill Stepien was very revealing about what Trump knew, when they knew it, and how did this start. Part of this that's interesting to me is the Trump campaign. The Republican Party built sort of a scaffolding around Donald Trump for the 2020 election. The RNC came in, and then he gets Bill Stepien after his first campaign manager washes out. He gets Bill Stepien, an old pro, right? A guy of great experience, Chris Christie guy, worked for the Bushes, worked for Mitt Romney. Like, he is a normal Republican. And he gets a normal Republican campaign manager. They sort of erect this scaffolding around Trump that they're going to try to win the presidency again with voters who want it to be Trump and with Republicans who want the policies but don't like Trump. So they're trying to thread this needle again in a difficult circumstance, pandemic, blah, 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 blah. What was revealing to me about what Stepien said was the turn that happens inside the White House and inside the administration after Trump can't get people to lie to him anymore, right? That what Trump is looking, and when Stepien talked about what the lawyer said, what Stepien said, what is everybody, tell me, like, lie to me. Basically, Trump is saying to them, you lie to me, tell me what I want to hear right now, or I'm going to get really angry. So the problem with weak leaders is that they cannot tolerate to hear what they don't want. So eventually they will find a group of people to surround them, to flatter them and keep the bubble thicker and thicker. And you can see what happened, that Trump pushed out the last honest men or the last legitimate people and turns to Rudy Giuliani. Holy crocono. I mean, those deposition videos, yikes-a-rooney. And you have Trump turn to these people and embrace this stuff, and you can follow the line from there to the end. I found all of that interesting and worthwhile in terms of my understanding. In terms of what the public takes out of this, I think the most important thing that the public can take out of all of this stuff, or what I hope they will take out of this, is that our founders constructed a system of anti-majoritarian checks and balances to make sure that power could not concentrate in the hands of too few people. And you see that the human desire for power, this lust for power, is so enormous and so consuming that around elections, you've got to put up big, bright barriers. You may not come here, you may not go there. The fact that Congress has failed to act on the Electoral Count Act, the fact that we have not seen bipartisan reform on that question to address this, is yet another bipartisan failing to really deal with security. We cannot go through this again in 2024. Donald Trump was the first president who ever tried to steal a second term or interfere with the peaceful transfer of power. It was the first time in American history. We had done it since 1800 when Thomas Jefferson defeated his hated rival, John Adams, and took the presidency away from him. And the world watched and said, can this young republic do it? Can this young republic do this? And we did it. And we did it. And we kept doing it for 226 years. Since George Washington handed over John Adams, 226 years, we did it the whole time. One time, we did it the wrong way. And Donald Trump provided a credible threat that we would not maintain our birthright of this peaceful transference of power. And if we don't get it right in 2024, we are well and truly screwed.
Every interview you and I have ever done together, every piece of television, has always included a history lesson, which makes you love country more and inspire you to be a better American, which is one of the great parts of being together. That makes, you've laid out the case for the committee's work to being even more important than just resuscitating the events of January 6th. It is to keep this from happening again. Therefore, it is incumbent upon them to go overboard, to try and draw in as many Americans as you can and as they can to this process. Does the fact that it is a committee made up of people who clearly have a narrative to prove and are going about that and lack any type of defense or even rebuttal from the other side or questions from the other side bother you?
Well, they had Rudy Giuliani. And they had people who believed that now granted, since they didn't come in person, you've got cut tape and not the back and forth. I have no idea. I'll tell you this. Congress would have impeached and convicted Donald Trump of what he did if Democrats would have worked with Republicans and Republicans would have participated in an impeachment article in the first 48 hours after January 6th. But you know what happened? They didn't. They let Ted Lieu, Democrat from California, Jamie Raskin, Democrat from Maryland, and I believe Adam Schiff. I think Adam Schiff build an article of impeachment. Now, if you wanted to really convict Trump, what would you do? You would start and say, find Republicans of goodwill. What can we do? They didn't do it. And then the Senate, and this was really unfortunate, when the call came to have a bipartisan special commission like we did after 9/11 to investigate what Trump did, what happened, all of this stuff, all the lapses, it was going to pass in the Senate. But then Republicans in the end decided, and one of them even said it publicly, this could hurt us in 2022 for midterms. I don't think we want to do this, so we're going to pull back. Mm-hmm. So they drop out of that. They kick it over to Pelosi. Pelosi says, okay, here we go. Kevin McCarthy, send the members. He sends 2 members who were part of the effort to steal the election. And she says, I'll seat the 3, but not these 2. You have to send replacements. And he says, well, if they can't come, we're pulling out. Believing, what did he think was going to happen? That it would shut down the committee completely and that there wouldn't be one. We win. No profiles in courage here, right? Nobody here is acting out of love. No one here is putting themselves on I shouldn't say none, but what we saw from the leadership in both parties was not a profile in courage, was not a willingness to suffer pain politically in order to get to the truth and get things done. So we end up with this imperfect committee, and it is certainly imperfect. And we also saw Democrats bragging about how, I think it was Raskin who said, we're going to blow the roof off the house and all this stuff. Don't do that. Honest to goodness, don't do that. You want to look like you come in sorrow. You want to come in sorrow, not in anger. You don't want to look at this to get Republicans. You want to use this as an opportunity to bring people together to talk about what happened, people of good faith. To save this republic, we will need people of good faith who are Democrats and Republicans to work together. They may disagree on specific policies, but liberals and conservatives alike who care about the future of the country are going to have to invest in these institutions and do the work. It's an imperfect committee. I didn't make it, but it was legitimately impaneled, and I was, of course, going to go testify when they called me. You just said that don't come in anger. Right. And compared to Jamie Raskin saying we're going to blow the roof off of this, right, and some of the more bombastic things we've heard, certainly on the Sunday shows. Could that lead fair-minded Republicans to say, I don't like Trump, I don't agree with anything that happened on January 6th, but I also don't believe anything that comes out of a committee that speaks in that way? You know, look, I think they've been, by limiting the questions, what we've seen so far is that they've limited the questioning. Questions I got from Zoe Lofgren today were appropriate and normal and fine. And they did not seem excessively partisan. I think I want to credit Bernie Thompson for the tone and the mood in the room has been sober-sided. Mm-hmm. It's been serious. It's been appropriate to the event. It has not been, I'm sure as anyone would expect, I'm the first person in those hearings to have laughed out loud during the hearing, but some of it was pretty funny. But look, I think it's an imperfect vessel. It's the vessel that exists. They're making a record of something that we need for the future. And, when I hear Republicans say stuff like, well, I want to talk about inflation. I want to talk about gas prices. And I say, okay, talk about it. Go for it. We can do two things at once. And plus, it's not like Congress would. What do you think? If Congress wasn't doing this, what would they be doing?
Oh, they've been regulating cryptocurrency. That's one of the things.
Also known as doing nothing, right? They would be issuing press releases and tweeting. So it's not like, oh, if only it weren't for these hearings, we would solve inflation. No, that's not what would happen.
You called them hearings. You think about that room. There's an enormous teleprompter in front of you. Mm-hmm. Almost every question that you got.
I did not have a teleprompter.
You didn't, but they did. Yeah. Every question you got was read off the teleprompter. Yes. You have not even almost, you have cable news-like TV production, clip 14, clip 12, do this, do that. Is it fair for history to call this a hearing, or is this more of a telling?
Oh, I mean, they heard that seems a little semantic. I guess what I would say is.
But it's more scripted than anything we've ever seen.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. Congressional hearings are awful, mostly. Congressional hearings. So here's when Republicans spiked the 9/11 style commission in the Senate, they assumed that we would end up with the same kind of terrible hearing that we usually get from the House or Senate, but usually get from the House, which is, how it goes. You put the fish over there at the table, and then they go around and take turns in 5-minute increments making speeches and being partisan idiots, and nothing is revealed, nothing is done. This side runs interference, that side makes little sermonettes, right? They're doing it differently than that. I understand the scripting does not seem authentic and with the flow and all of that stuff, and that is obviously true. But the alternative with this Congress is just moronic, right? And these hearings are awful. There's no headline that chaps me more. So-and-so up for Hill grilling, a moment of truth for, Susie Cream Cheese in House committee today. No, that's never what happens. Because what instead will happen is thirsty politicians looking for the clip that will play on cable, looking for the tweet, looking for the thing they can fundraise on, are going to make little sermonettes and nothing's going to be found out. I think this is superior to that.